I'm really curious to understand between RPA and the history of Agentic and how we arrived at it.
RPA is more rule-based, but Agentic AI is more configurable, it is more flexible.
I wanted to hear what problems you typically solve with RPA and what are you looking for Agentic AI to solve for you?
With RPA, the process is pretty static. So when you implement the agentic process, it learns from the data and it'll continually evolve.
How do you guys measure and kind of proclaim the efficiency to your customers?
I think it's the same thing. It's always cost saving.
Let me introduce our guest here. Today's topic, as we all know, is about Agentic AI, and we have taken the kind of a historical approach about RPA to Agentic AI, put some context to it. I have two people from product side, very interesting product. I kind of stopped myself from reading about it so that I can ask some interesting questions here and learn live here. And we have Dave from the enterprise side. Maybe we'll learn how, David from enterprise side, and learn how they're going to implement that. So let me go and give an opportunity for our guests to introduce yourselves. Sri, maybe you can go ahead.
Hey everyone, can you all hear me okay? Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Srijan Kumar. I'm the CEO of a company called Lighthouz.AI. I'm also a professor at Georgia Tech. I've been building AI systems for the last 15 years now for companies like Home Depot, Meta, Google, and others. And then at Georgia Tech, I was teaching masters and PhD students about all the cool AI technology that was out there. Then a year and a half ago, started Lighthouz, which is an Agentic AI company that automates accounts payables. And yeah, excited to be here. We're also part of Tech-Alpharetta. If you haven't checked them out, Karen's right over here. You should definitely talk to them.
David.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is David Ferber. I lead our analytical capabilities and technology consulting practice at Equifax. I've been at Equifax for 30 years, and most of my career has been in the tech space, building big data platforms. It's been a lot of fun. They give me a lot of leeway, but I'm a data geek at heart, and I'm working for the company that has some of the greatest data for helping businesses make better decisions and ultimately helping people live their financial best. So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of great efforts in technology. We're now fully migrated to the cloud. So I've seen a lot of iterations of technology from mainframes to distributed computing and now to cloud. So it's been a cool journey for me and Equifax. We do cool things. And so I'm just happy to be here to talk about what we're doing with AI and kind of where I see it going in the future. So great to meet everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. David, go ahead, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Albano. I'm the CEO of a company called Diliko. We're actually a new startup. We spun out from another company last November. We're a data management company that essentially helps companies organize their data so they can consume it in various ways. They're consuming it for analytics. They're consuming it to connect to LLMs for AI. They're consuming it for automation. They're consuming it for customized applications. We use Agentic AI in our software and our product to help our data engineers organize that data.
Thank you, Dave. Sri, maybe we'll get started with you. I'm really curious to understand and connect these dots between RPA and the history of Agentic and how we arrived at it. And I wanted to hear from you about that. And I guess you have a slide.
Yeah. Just to bring everyone on the same page, I couldn't shed my professor personality, so I created a slide, but it's just one slide. I'm not going to bore everyone. So both RPA and Agentic AI are business process automation technologies. The biggest difference between the two is Agentic AI is like the latest version of that, and RPA is like very, very, very old version of it. So RPA started around 2000s. Agentic AI is like super new. And the reason that's important is because the biggest boom in AI has happened in the last 3.5 years. AI has been around for 70 plus years now. But the biggest difference that has happened is the accessibility has improved so much and increased so much that I'm sure everyone has used AI at some level, at some point in time, maybe even on a day-to-day basis. So what these RPA and Agentic AI technologies are able to do is to accomplish tasks. Compare that to generative AI systems. So generative AI system like ChatGPT is able to write content, but an Agentic AI system or an RPA system is able to do end-to-end tasks. So it wouldn't just write it, but it would then do data entry on your ERP system, for example, send out an email, wait for a response. So you can like configure these tasks to essentially complete a process. RPA is more rule-based, but Agentic AI is more configurable, it is more flexible, and you don't have to like write down all the rules that it has to follow. You can write it in a natural language, and it's able to complete that task by understanding what it's supposed to do in different scenarios. Because RPA is rule-based, it's very brittle, it's very fickle as well. Biggest use for RPA and Agentic AI is for like data entry and for process automation. So imagine the data entry aspect of it. In RPA, you'd have to write down all the rules of where specific data is supposed to be and what the extraction is going to be, for which OCR is typically used. But in Agentic AI, you don't have to create all these rules. It's more free form, and it's able to perform even without all these changes. So those are the biggest differences. The biggest boom in process automation has become primarily because of Agentic AI now in the last couple of years. And my company is solely doing that for the accounts payable part. Dave's company is using Agentic AI for the data management aspects of things. And we discussed about Equifax as well. There's so much Agentic AI happening within the enterprise to deliver value to the end customer. So that's a brief primer on RPA and Agentic AI.
Yep. Thanks, Sri. So a couple of follow-ups on that. I remember getting introduced to RPA, and my first thought was, let me scrape the whole Wikipedia and put it on a disk. So I wanted to understand from the agentic point of view, what are some of the low-hanging fruits that you see the industry has maybe already kind of used, including you? Obviously, you are on the frontier of that, and maybe you can include yourself and tell us what low-hanging use cases people are implementing with this technology.
Sure. Very quickly, and I would love to hear from the other panelists as well, from their experience. I think the biggest advantage or the biggest change in Agentic AI has happened in the data extraction world and in simpler process automations on the sales and marketing side so far. How many of you are somewhere related to sales? Okay. Some of you, not too many. Okay, maybe half of you. So lead generation, following up with customers, following up with them, reaching out, and all of those used to be manual. There's some of it that's automated in your sales outreach systems and so on. But those tend to become very robotic, very templated. But now with Agentic AI, you can make them very human-like and flexible and so on. So there's been a lot of Agentic AI improvements and automations being done on the sales and the marketing side. New age companies like my own are getting into the back office, doing Agentic AI for the accounts payables, receivables, procurement, and so on and so forth. Those are some of the areas that we are seeing a lot of benefit from Agentic AI and also data extraction from unstructured documents.
Got it. So these are all the business process workflows. Typically, you're sending an email. I kind of recently, I remember that every year you have to send a particular document to SEC because that's part of compliance. So somebody fills it up and sends it to a certain email, and then you get a kind of acknowledgement, and a person used to do that, and that is a very low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But the difference that I'm kind of gathering here is that this is more human and elastic rather than the brittle RPA style of doing things. Got it. I'll go to Dave. I'm very interested in how it's being, some of the use cases on the data side, Dave. Really wanted to learn about that.
Yeah, when I think of, when we start with RPA, it's kind of if then else, right? So it's kind of structured. On the data side, if you use data a lot, right, one of the problems is I get this data. So when you think about big data, right, we talked about big data years ago, right? Everybody's going to do big data. And the problem with big data was we loaded all this data in, we were supposed to get all these insights, and it was like a needle in a haystack, right? There was so much data, I couldn't do anything with it. So some of what we do right now is, can you ask questions of your data? So some of the things we're doing is, I'm looking for a certain type of data. Which file is it in? Which table is it in? Which data elements have that? And so when we connect the data, we're giving our customers the ability to figure out which tables or files have that information in them. So it really helps our customers figure out, right, how to solve the problem. So in today's world, they're trying to figure out, how do I produce an outcome? That outcome might just be an analytic, right? And when I'm looking at that analytic, where's the data source of truth, right, that I'm going to get for that analytic? And cutting through that for our customers has been really good. Our data engineers also use it heavily. They use it heavily to do coding, as an example. So when I have that raw data and I'm trying to get it into a format, we could actually ask our Agentic AI to code that for us, right? And it gets us about 90% of the way there, right, to produce those outcomes. And so we're using it for all different things. What we like about it is it has short and long-term memory, right, with Agentic AI. And if you think about it, all of the knowledge was with the person before. Now the knowledge is in the system. And so one of the byproducts that we figured out was data engineering is, it's a tough position to staff. Now I can keep that short-term and long-term memory of what questions that data engineer asked, and if they leave the company, that knowledge is with my company.
Got it. That's very interesting point. I never thought about it in that way, that the knowledge is now in the systems rather than leaving with the people, or just colloquially in the group of the people, right? I wanted to go a little bit deep dive. You gave one example that engineers are using that. Can you think of one kind of a task that they typically kind of automate? Like, is it like, because when I think about data, I don't know why I go to backup. So that's my first thought process. But are there any particular use cases that you think your engineers usually use this for, agents?
Well, they're doing it, like I said, they're doing it for the scripting, right? So they're doing it for that piece, but they're using it for all different things, right? Our customers, in terms of what type of questions they can ask it.
So you're basically conversing with that data, and then you're asking it to, do a certain task without actually scripting that. Right. So it's going to script for itself. David, I would like to come to you and kind of ask, I mean, you have probably deployed a lot of RPA inside your organization, and I wanted to hear from you, because you are, as far as I can guess, would be a cautious kind of a adopter who's coming after the niche players,
right,
or the frontier players adopt it. So first, I wanted to hear what problems you typically solve with RPA, and what are you looking for Agentic AI to solve for you?
Yeah, thanks. I'll say, first of all, like with RPA, the process is pretty static, right? As you know, we take data, we have analysts that go and analyze the data to develop rules, and then you create specs, and you hand those specs off to a developer who implement those rules, and they're static. And so when we're doing decision-making processes, like automating decision processes, they're static and they're based on analytics. So if data starts to change, and those rules are not changing. So when you implement the agentic process, it learns from the data and it'll continually evolve. And I love the fact that, keeping the knowledge internally versus an analyst that developed the specs years ago, and then you need to make changes. That person could be gone and you don't know. So I think in that sense, our customers buy data to make better decisions, and there's an orchestration of acquiring the information, modeling the information, and then making decisions on it. So in that case, orchestrating that end-to-end flow, there could be like a fraud check, or I may need to go get a data source here. based on the data at that point in time. With RPA, you had to think through all those possible scenarios and code for them. Now you can let the machine kind of decide, this information is sketchy, maybe I need to go do a fraud check first before I go down the rest of the process. So in our business, we're trying to take and automate as much as possible. And when you're making like financial decisions with a bank, approving or declining, right, that's a high risk kind of use case. So it's highly regulated. And so it's limited right now in what we're doing with these processes. So I think it'll be evolving. I think we're just scratching the surface on it. But that, and I think you mentioned data pipelines or data extraction. We do a lot of data movement, as you can imagine. And a lot of my data engineers are spending a lot of time, building pipelines, and they're leveraging some of the Gen AI tools to help accelerate the coding of those.
Got it. One of the questions would be like, for adoption perspective, when do you think you would kind of start adopting it faster? Now you're in an exploration phase, you're testing it out. What would you like to see before you go and use it in some critical way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like, with any new technologies that come online, I'm a technology geek. I love seeing new stuff come out. But you got to be cautious on how you adopt it. And I like to find a low-risk use case. When I brought in Hadoop into Equifax, it was commercially available distributed computing. I was a little hesitant based on the volume of data and what we're doing. I was like, well, let's use it for reporting. Like, let's do reporting first. And that was a low-risk use case. So worst case scenario, the reports are wrong. And but once we got comfortable with the quality and the speed of things, we were able to move that into higher risk use cases, and I feel the same about Agentic AI. We're going to use it for small things, put a lot of controls in place to make sure it's not producing bad results or doing things you wouldn't want it to do. And then once you get comfortable with that low risk use case, then we can more confidently go into a higher risk use case that's going to provide more benefit to the company and to our customers.
Got it. Sri, I wanted to come back with the same question to you because you are already deployed that, and customers may ask you like, how do I kind of right away trust this, and what kind of questions, and when do you think this will become like a without hesitation kind of a adoption?
Yeah, great question. So it's very similar to what was just explained here. But with Agentic AI systems being deployed, there's a big part of evaluations being done. So you have to evaluate the Gen AI system or an Agentic AI system, just like any other technology. You have to evaluate it before deploying it on a large scale. There's a two-phase approach you can do for that, and this is what we typically do when we deploy our Agentic AI system for accounts payables. You would test it out on a smaller sample for a few days on a live stream of data that the customer is using. Make sure that things are fine, and then once there's enough confidence in the system, then deploy it at a larger scale. But before all of this happens, there's a big piece of evaluating the Agentic AI system with an evaluation set and a test set, and ensuring that the Gen AI system itself doesn't hallucinate, which is a big problem typically in generative AI systems. So it should not hallucinate. It should have high coverage. It should have low false positive and low false negative rates. All of those scenarios are tested out by the engineering team typically, or the AI team, to make sure that things are fine. There's a whole field in generative AI called AI evals, and it's all about different technologies that are used to evaluate Gen AI and Agentic AI systems.
Got it. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of correlate this with RPA, right? In RPA world, we write a process, we are sure who wrote it and what it'll do. And if that person misunderstood it, at least we know what it does. It may be doing it wrong because it was coded wrong, but we know that. But how do you kind of have that kind of deterministic way of evaluating in these kind of systems where you're handing over something important to them, but you don't know they'll be really accurate that way? So what you're suggesting is industry has some metrics for that behavior. and to measure it. And that's how you kind of go talk to customer using those kind of metrics.
Yeah, you have to benchmark the system, pre-deployment, then benchmark it live as well.
Okay.
And they have to match up or they have to increase over time.
Got it. Dave, maybe same question to you. What kind of questions you get from your customers? Because you are on the forefront, you have this product with this advanced technology. What concerns and questions do customers usually ask?
Yeah. So when they're using Agentic AI and they're asking questions of the system, if it doesn't give them the right answer, they can give it a thumbs down. And so we're doing a human in the loop, right? And so we've got data engineers. When that gets a thumbs down, that routes to our data engineers, and then they'll figure out why did it get that answer, right? So we have a scoring system that allows us to see what influenced it to give it that answer, number one. And then number two, what context would I have to give it additionally to get a better answer, right? To get a thumbs up on that. So our customers are working with us with a thumbs up, thumbs down, so that we can continue to tune it and get it smarter.
Got it. David, I wanted to take this one step forward, even though we might not be there, but the concept that Gartner calls a citizen developer, that perhaps a techno-functional person or a pure functional or business person, because these systems interact in natural language, why can't a business person start working with it and all that? So do you think we are at that stage sooner?
I definitely think we are. Especially the tooling has become so advanced that's out in the market today. Low code, no code tooling. I call it the citizen data scientist, really. And so a business person has knowledge of the business problem, experience with the data that's available to them to make better decisions. Tools like Dataiku, Data Robot, H2O, they're driverless AI. You can actually develop models, pretty sophisticated machine learning models, without really understanding how to code, right? And I think the next generation of agentic AI tools are starting to come out. I know Google, we're a Google shop, but Google's bringing their tooling to the market where you don't necessarily have to be a Python developer to know how to write some of this stuff. So I'm seeing that happening today. And the people who are taking advantage of it now are going to have a head start, I think. Because for me personally, I've had to wrap my head around how to think differently with these tools. It really is like, I don't want to look at it as, how do I fix an existing process and make it more efficient? Like, how do I rethink the whole problem and leveraging from the ground up these AI tooling capabilities to just start from scratch versus trying to fix old inefficient processes.
Got it. So what I'm learning here is that because of such a kind of dramatic change in the landscape, there are new opportunities to solve that problem in a new way instead of just automating what was there.
Correct.
Like if you were sending an email and you were receiving an email, with these new opportunities, you might solve it in a different way with this new natural language AI agentic models, basically. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention one other thing too, like the type of people and the skill sets that you're working with. I don't know if that's a question you're going to ask a little later, but
go ahead.
I was going to jump into that because where I work and how I operate, I see there's two kind of groups of people in my world. You've got the geeks and you got the nerds. Who here is a geek? Anybody? The geeks are the technology people, if you're wondering, and then the nerds are the analytical people, right? And when you talk about agentic AI and AI in general, the geeks aren't left out. Like they're brought into the picture. Normally it was a nerd thing, right? The nerds were doing all the cool analytic stuff. The geeks were just writing code that the analytic guys told them to write. Now you're seeing geeks take advantage of the Gen AI with developing code, building better quality processes, right? Those things that normally were just reserved for the nerds. And then the nerds are building better models, they're doing more advanced analytics, and they're able to scale and do more with these tools than they were individually in the past.
Got it. Yeah. Sri, I wanted to continue that thought process. Like your product, as far as I could understand, is actually targeted like this, that you don't need experts or the customer that you target doesn't come in and configure some complicated stuff. It's meant for some end user, right? So you are exactly doing what we are talking about here.
Yeah, our product is supposed to be used by non-experts.
Got it.
These are accounting people who have literally no knowledge about coding or programming and so on. But they, in our case, they are not the ones who are building or designing or configuring the system. We do that for them and then we deploy it. The way accounts payables currently works in most businesses is that your vendors send you invoices via email. Sometimes these are easy, 1 page long. Sometimes these are 4, 5, 20 pages long. An accounts payable person downloads that invoice, verifies it line by line against your system of record, be it your ERP system or your TMS system or so on. You want to make sure that every penny going out is actually right. They'd verify it, they'd do the data entry on your TMS and so on. That entire process can now be fully automated with Agentic AI. Reliable data extraction, all of those intermediate steps can be fully automated. Now, a end user doesn't really care what is the cool technology behind
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
They just want to make sure that the outcome is as reliable as possible and that they don't have to interfere, they don't have to manually do the stuff as much as they were currently doing. So with the previous age technology like RPA, it's called no-touch rate. The no-touch rate is like 45% or 50%. But with agentic AI systems, you can get that up high to like 85, 90%. And that's the game changer because now you're not, like the human is not touching as many documents anymore.
Got it. So it is, I mean, from your product point of view, you're making it super accessible because your customer is like that, right?
Yes,
it's targeted at that kind of customer and all of that. Dave, maybe similar question to you. Obviously, your product, as much as I could understand, is not targeted at a complete novice, but obviously you're trying to bring similar things in your product with these technologies, that it is accessible to slightly kind of lower skilled person. He's probably not a database administrator, but he knows some technology, so maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, I think we're creating an abstraction layer almost, right, from the technology itself, so that a business person could ask questions of the data. They don't need to understand how to pull the data and do all the things with the data. The data is available and they can ask questions of it. So it creates this abstraction, almost like cloud, right? Create an abstraction layer. You didn't have to worry about buying the servers and configuring, like you still configure them, but it made it easier, right? And I see with Agentic AI, with that framework, right, it's creating an abstraction layer at the user level that allows us to have different types of users. But we're also hiring different types of engineers. So like I have a prompt engineer now, right? I have a prompt engineer a year ago. I didn't even know what it was. Yeah. But somebody that's working at the prompt that's that's training these models and feeding the data in. So things are changing within our company as well in terms of the type of skill sets we need.
Got it. Sri, I wanted to ask a follow-up to that. And I'm now kind of in my mind chuckling at the question that I wrote. I wanted, the next question was, what are the new things that are coming in 3 to 5 years? But I have watched enough YouTube videos that in 3 to 5 years, everybody will be on UBI or something. So let's talk about 1 to 2 year. What do you think the new things that are going to accelerate in 1 to 2 years?
1 to 2 years, wow. Most of the businesses out there, we talk about mid-market and enterprise level businesses, are already implementing AI in some way or the other in their business processes and their operations. How many of you in this room have, from your business side, have AI systems already in place or in the works right now? 50, 60%? Okay, yeah. So most of the so 2024 was the year of like pilots and doing small projects and seeing, as you were saying, trying it out on low risk or very, very minimal risk scenarios. Many companies have moved past that and are now doing like larger scale deployment. Some companies are getting to that phase as well. So in 1 to 2 years, we'll start seeing every company becoming an AI-powered company. That's going to completely transform the way businesses have been running in the past. In the Silicon Valley, there's buzz of like, okay, in the future, we'll have a single person billion-dollar company. That's just because AI agents are just going to do all the manual, tactical work that's required. You now literally have AI agents doing each business operation. And guess what? Getting AI agents to do stuff is like just so much cheaper and much easier to manage compared to having humans who you have to interview, hire, train, they leave, you have to repeat the process all over again, right? And as they were saying, intelligence still remains within the company if you have AI agents. So we are seeing businesses realize that, bigger ones know that there's a lot of value to be mined out of it. So enterprises are investing heavily in it. Mid-market, they have smaller capital, but they realize that there are so much inefficiencies in their processes that they do need to get around to doing it. So I believe that in 3 to 5 years, we'll definitely see big transformations happening. In 1 to 2 years, we'll take steps towards that.
Got it. One follow-up to that, Sri, I feel like is, how do you kind of measure, somebody is deploying going full speed on this kind of solutions. How do you measure that you actually gained what you wanted to gain in terms of productivity, efficiency, right? How do you typically ask customers that once my product is deployed, this is the efficiency you will gain? So how do you recommend people measure that? It's okay to get started on something, but how do we, turn back and say, yes, we made progress?
I can talk from my perspective and how we do it. It's all about having measurable, quantifiable KPIs and metrics in place beforehand. Benchmark, let's say for our case, it's about the no-touch rate that you have. Currently, and also like how many invoices, how much time are you taking to process an invoice? Now, before the project starts, you got to measure how that business has been doing and what the no-touch rate and the metrics are. Then you need to have those target metrics 3 months out, 6 months out, 9 months out, and just benchmark against those and make sure that you're hitting those targets. If you're a business owner or if you are in a company that builds these systems and deploys it out, I think this is a very tried and tested and a repeatable way of ensuring that the ROI is quantifiable and actually delivers on the promise that's there.
Got it. Dave, maybe I wanted to ask a similar question to you. How do you guys measure and kind of proclaim the efficiency to your customers?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, and it's always cost savings, and it always starts with cost savings or growing revenue, right? We also measure internally accuracy, right? So that thumbs up, thumbs down becomes a big thing, right? Are we gaining out of that? Productivity is going to be a massive gain across all enterprises. I mean, I see in 2 years, I just see massive productivity gains. Almost everybody will have an AI agent on their desk, right? That they can ask questions of to make them more productive. I could see it already happening, right? Where you'll have an agent where you can ask all kinds of questions depending anywhere in the organization, right? I think everybody, and I think even personally, will have AI agents, right? That you can farm work out to.
Yep. One harder question for David is that because you have dev teams, I'm sure you have several dev teams and all that. Sri and Dave talked about how they kind of their efficiency they can measure in terms of business outcomes and show it to their customers. When you have a dev team and you're deploying some AI-powered tools for productivity, one of the things that we are struggling internally is to measure the productivity of the dev teams. It's such nuanced area. You don't build the same software twice. The same person does not do the same thing twice. So how do you measure this while there's so much advertisement about productivity using certain tools? How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, a couple ways here. One is, as an IT professional and a consultant, right, the first thing you do is you got to size an effort. What's this project gonna? It's going to take X number of hours, by these number of developers, and it's going to cost us many dollars based on your hours that you're going to commit. So we can see some efficiencies there where normally it would take 40 hours to build an application. I can say now I can do it in 20 hours, so you can measure it that way. But one of the ones that's really important for me is speed to market. When you're developing new products, you can use these tools to prototype new products to get enough of a solution that you can go in front of customers, get their feedback without having to spend years of development only to find out it's not going to hit the mark. So rapid prototyping is one example that I can see. So speed to market, getting solutions to the market, to your customers faster. That's an easily measurable one for us because right now it can take 6 to 12 months to do a new project, a new effort. But if I can rapidly prototype something in a month, get feedback, and then within 3 months I have a really honed in product that I can sell the entire market. So that's where I'm looking at efficiencies in bringing new products to the market, as well as the efficiency gains of just my developers having better quality control processes, better code generation processes. Those things are just table stakes at this point. But 2 to 3 years, it's really hard to wrap my head around what we're going to look like, right, in 2 to 3 years. So
that's why I don't want to go beyond 3 years.
Yeah, it's rapidly enhancing. I mean, just I feel like I'm in the middle of this, but I go to another conference and I'm way behind. It's like it's moving that fast. So, I know you teach at Georgia Tech, right? I know I did a stint at Emory on continuing education, and they had a really nice program because the curriculums take 3 to 4 years to get approved. So like a data science curriculum, they're teaching old techniques, right? So with the continuing education, they can bring people in the industry that are doing these things now and kind of get a good feel for what's important today. And I think that's really going to be important for this AI capabilities as we move forward.
Okay. Sri, I wanted to take turns and ask this question that is a standard question. Like, if you meet a CEO today and he takes your advice on how to proceed, I'm hearing so many things every day. OpenAI releases a video about something magical and they say that it's going to affect 1% of the entire GDP or something. So what would you advise to a CEO who comes to you because you're at the frontier?
My advice would be to look at, your business the best. So where inefficiencies lie and where there are areas of improvement. Now that can be either in terms of reducing cost in some way, or it can be in increasing business on the flip side. So from your perspective, decide which areas have the most bang for buck. And then I can guarantee you there is some solution out there that is AI based that will help you achieve that mark at a fraction of the cost compared to what a legacy solution might have. So that would be my general advice to them.
One comparison that I generally do is that what I feel is that the AI implementation has rapidly gone out of hype curve and came to implementation pretty fast. I feel that some other things that we thought would move have never moved, like blockchain never moved out of the hype. So you would say, go ahead and start using it. It's time to dip your toe.
Yeah, okay. I mean, everyone's benefiting from it. We were talking about code generation earlier. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't write code the way we used to even 6 months ago. We have on our Visual Studio Code, we have AI co-pilots helping us write the code. We just have to press tab and it just writes and we just have to verify. Literally, that's how we do it today. We just have to verify things. You can even chat and say, oh, write the function for this, and it will draft all of it in like 10 seconds. You just have to verify it. So there were some statistics that bigger companies, Google and others, like 90% of their code is now generated through AI. So we are getting into that stage. AI is everywhere already, whether you realize it or not. And your competitors are using it. I don't think people have a choice anymore.
there's an arms race.
Yep.
You have to arm up, basically. David, same question to you. If your CEO or some other CEO asks for your advice, what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, similar thought. We will get left behind if you do not start to adopt and take advantage of some of these things and the efficiencies you can gain. But again, going back to that, rethinking how you do your business, what products that you want to take to market, how you want to develop those products. I even go as far as to understanding the market itself and saying, what is the market really asking for versus sifting through massive amounts of data and saying, we think the market wants this. It can tell you now. It can sift through and you'll get a different answer every time you ask the question, depending on the on the problem and the data set. But at the end of the day, I'm recommending we rethink how we build products in the company because of the rapid acceleration of what we can do there, and fail fast, right? That's a big common thing. I think this is a tool that's going to allow us to do more of that for sure. But dipping the toe in and starting from scratch, it's a scary thought. And I know I was on a call yesterday with a team of lawyers, and they're freaking out about what we're going to do with Gemini and how we're going to put it in front of customers and how we're going to control it. And those are valid questions and things we need to solve for. And we have, fortunately, we've hired a chief AI officer to help figure that out or think about it. And I think a lot of companies are looking at building that as a department inside their company to properly address all the needs that AI is going to support, and in a controlled and safe way, because it can be very risky. Yeah.
Got it. That's a good point that I'm learning that you said chief of AI?
Yeah, a chief AI officer.
Chief AI officer. Yeah. Okay. So that's exactly what I think we are internally playing that role as a distributor, figuring out, okay, what is the impact of if we start using this tool? Are there any liabilities? Are we leaking data? So I think that's an expertise now, and you need somebody knowledgeable to kind of handle that, right? Dave, similar question. What would be your advice to a CEO who's looking to you for this thing?
Yeah, I would start small, but going back to this AI legal piece, I wanted to just kind of touch on that. Lineage becomes very important. So where did you get the data from? Yeah. So if somebody's going to say, hey, you stole that data from me, right? Being able to show the lineage of where that data came from becomes increasingly important.
Good point.
Right. Absolutely. And so we're kind of seeing that now, right? And so keeping track of the source of truth of that data and how you got it into your system will be a requirement.
Got it. One of the things that we were kind of observing was Copilot or GitHub Copilot was, I don't know, there are some perhaps cautious modes in that the admins kind of configured. It was so timid in kind of giving the code. Every time it generated code and retracted it, saying that maybe I generated something I saw somewhere else, and it's retracting. So we could see the hesitation that they built into the system to just be on the kind of safer side. Okay. I think, Lisa, we can start taking questions if... Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is really nice. And since I've been in the AI world, I own Tech-Alpharetta. It's an AI consulting staff and training firm. So we're building AI agents mainly for education, because that's where my background is from. I think I would like to know more on the costing aspect. We all know the AI is enhancing the productivity, but I am having a tough time when I have to showcase the aspects of the cost savings, because really the cost is actually increasing because of the processing costs, the infrastructure costs. So convincing the education world that yes, you are going to improve their productivity, but I don't think so I'm actually able to tell them that cost savings are huge. So how do you really get to your customers experiencing that? Or I think I would like to know a little bit more about it. How are you saving cost savings? Because it seems like productivity is yes, there is more, but the cost saving still is at that same or maybe more because of all these extra costs that is coming to maintain that AI infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thought process. I'll probably want to hear from all three of you about that. Because you guys, from the product side, you guys are SaaS and you're absorbing that cost and giving a service, while David, you have infrastructure and you actually have to calculate all of these things. Maybe I'd start with you, David, maybe hear from you.
Yeah, obviously the investment in the infrastructure has already been made for standard business operations. As far as ROI goes, I like to look at it like I've got 8 data scientists on one of my teams, and we have 70 plus customers they're supporting. To get finance to approve another headcount or grow that team is very difficult. So I like to look at, I can expand to 100 customers with 8 people because they're leveraging AI to help enhance it. I'm building an AI bot that's trained on some of our documentation, so customers can start there and get answers. So it's taking that person picking up the phone and answering questions to a customer, it's taking it off their plate. Hopefully the customer can get 50-60% of the information they need through that tool versus having to go hire a whole nother person and benefits and all that. So I look at ROI at a headcount level, not just a productivity level, because now I can do more with less people, and that's really how I'm looking at it on my side. There's probably 100 different ways, depending on your business and the problem you're trying to solve. But in mine specifically, I'm looking at how to do more with less people or with the same amount of people.
Got it. Maybe Dave, you guys are a SaaS perhaps, and you guys are probably investing now. So I wanted to understand, how do you think from cost perspective and what you get out of it?
There's kind of a couple things. So compute's expensive, right? Storage is cheap, compute's expensive. So when we think about agentic AI and data in general, it's like, do I use all the data or do I use a subset of data? So we have a concept in the company called silver to gold. And silver to gold is basically saying, how do I skinny down the data sets before I actually feed them into things, right? Mm-hmm. And so that allows us to kind of optimize some of the cost rather than running against large data sets, which runs up my compute bill, right? And so we've been doing it that way. The other thing that's interesting from a client perspective is their feedback to us is, wow, I don't have to hire a data engineer now, I can do it with a data analyst. So kind of going back to what we were talking about before, so the skill set changed for them in terms of what they needed to hire to do their data management now. And so there's a cost savings from them, and also from a hiring perspective, it's easier to get an analyst than an engineer. So we're seeing it from two sides, both the customer side and our side.
Got it. Same question, Sri. How are you guys handling costs, infrastructure particularly?
So there's one side which is like our cost, which is, AWS and Google and others are very generous, so they give like tons of credit. So we literally don't have to worry about our infrastructure costs for the next 3 years. So I don't think about that. But how we price is, I think, like what the question was. How do you show the pricing ROI to the customer? And for us, it's depends on the type of customer we're going after. If the customer has no automation already, then that means they have tons of people doing that manual invoice auditing and verification and data entry. The ROI for us is like, you don't need as many people to do it, and the leadership knows that headcount can be replaced with automation. That's one. The second is the other type of customers that have legacy automation systems. We can undercut them by quite a lot just because our costs are so much lower because they are built on agentic AI and AI systems. So we have a higher no-touch rate at a fraction of the cost of these legacy systems. So those are the ways in which we have been able to price. I know selling into education is super difficult because education doesn't have as much capital. And I know that from my Georgia Tech experience. So I think like that's another whole story to think about. But broadly, I think like with agentic AI, headcount reduction has become a reality, like it or not.
Okay, one small follow-up on that, because you mentioned about your infrastructure cost. So should I take away from that if you're using some standard models and you're not training something from ground up, it's not the same that you hear on the news in terms of infrastructure cost that we hear when in the news cycle. They're talking about some big companies rolling out ground up models. Is that what you're suggesting when you say that your infrastructure cost is not a kind of a worry for you?
I mean, we will never buy hardware. We'll never buy GPUs. It will always be on the cloud.
Right, absolutely. Uh-huh.
As a early stage startup, what AWS and Azure and Google and others want to do is to convince me to use their own service. So what they do is like they give $300,000 worth of credits, compute credits.
Mm-hmm.
Most companies in the world do not train their own AI systems.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna use OpenAI or Anthropic or one of these LLM providers as the AI brain, AI engine behind it. The compute cost for that is negligible. It's like very, very, very cheap. Unless you go to a stage where the volumes are just massive,
Mm-hmm.
like Equifax level compute cost, or not inference cost for LLM call is going to be much higher than my company just because of this volume of calls that we are making. So bigger companies that ones you're talking about, many of them want to create their own AI infrastructure, and that requires millions and billions of dollars of investment. But for people in the room or the hypothetical CEO who would ask my advice,
Mm-hmm.
like that's not like infra cost is going to be negligible. The AI cost is going to be not too high.
Yep. Again, going back to the same kind of the acceleration in terms of AI in that Gartner curve is like so rapid that it's already at a pace where it's almost cost is not a concern, basically. Okay, I'll take the next question.
That's my point.
Go ahead.
So my name is Brijesh. I'm a CTO of a local startup. We work with Karen here out of Tech-Alpharetta. We are a healthcare startup, and we are using AI, started using AI. We're trying to deploy agents. But the biggest question for us is regulations and compliance. So being a startup, not very familiar with HIPAA, SOC 2, working with them, how this AI or any of these agentic AI is being used in my company, how does they impact? Does it impact me getting a HIPAA compliance? Will I not be able to get SOC 2 compliance because I'm using agentic AIs, and how do they evaluate that?
One thing that I'm doing, and I think this is fairly common these days, leveraging RAG databases to put all the documentation that you want your model to learn from in the RAG database. So all the HIPAA compliance, all the regulatory stuff, literally notebooks or pages full, right? Same in the credit industry, it's highly regulated. When you can put all that documentation into the system and it's answering based on that knowledge, so you're getting less hallucinations, and you're able to, hey, am I following the compliance that's being out there? So you can ask it, and it'll answer you in that context. And I love that concept. So it allows you to not have to be the expert in those regulatory decisions. You especially as those rules change a lot. Put it back in the RAG and let the AI help you understand if you're following the regulations properly. At least, hopefully, that answered kind of what you're talking about. But if you guys have any similar experiences with leveraging RAG.
Okay, any thoughts on this? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I have a question. We see that a lot of the things, improvements with AI, tend to be productivity, efficiency, and it all makes sense. It's probably the first level you reach. But in the case you mentioned, Dave, where the system's getting the input from all these people, and instead of it all being segregated, it's all in one place now. Mm-hmm. So you have 1,000 people, 5,000, 10,000 people in a company doing all kinds of different work, and all that's going into it. Isn't it possible you can leverage that now to be able to generate a new value proposition for the company, a new business model based on everything that it's seeing?
Yeah, it's like a 360 view of everything, right? And we're actually using some graph databases to do that, right? Because it gives us like a complete view of the customer and all of the work they're doing around their data. And so, yeah, I think there's all kinds of new models that are, what I'm also seeing from our customers is the data sharing is increasing, right? And so they're taking their data, merging it with other data, even third-party data, and they're creating new data sources that they can now monetize. right? By putting payer data, so in the healthcare industry, right, taking some of this payer data and moving it with other data so that they can really actually sell that data set, right? And so we're seeing all kinds of new use cases to monetize data or share data, right, to create new opportunities downstream, for sure.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. You wanted to add something?
Yeah.
Sri, go.
So productivity and efficiency gains are definitely one of the biggest advantages that AI has. But beyond that, there can already, with the existing technology, there can be a lot of ROI beyond that as well. For example, the tool that we have for one type of customers, and most of you wouldn't know it, but I know Brian would, they're called freight factors. For them to be able to provide value to their customers at a much, much, much faster rate helps them grow their business as well. So it increases their top line, not just reducing efficiency, not just reducing headcount and so on, which is a byproduct, but the biggest advantage in certain scenarios, if you build the AI right, if you have the right value proposition, is actually that you can grow your business to the level that you can imagine. It's not just about reducing your team from 10 people to 5 people or whatever.
Got it. Help me if I'm interpreting your thought here correctly. Is the way I kind of, it gives me a very good thought here. What he's suggesting is that you had this organization producing value and people are divided into teams. They are in their silos attempting to create some value, right? And when you kind of merge that knowledge into one place, it's like one team member is that AI in every team, and he brings that knowledge to a central place. Can some new value come out of it?
Yeah, it's like, go back 5,000 years where the first caveman made a canoe. It was probably fairly basic, but that's all he knew. And as we go on and people see different things and we all experience different things, we're able to create something
New.
And so when you have 1,000 people working in the company, they're all they're learning from the projects they're doing, okay? But that's the projects they're doing. If you take all that together, this system, this brain or whatever you want to call it, has gotten information from everybody's projects. In all part, it could take it from human resources, from finance, from sales. Everybody that's done something, it's gotten in there. And so you should be able to come up and find a whole new business. You know, maybe take everything you've done and say, hey, try this new business model, or here's a value proposition that'll really help you take the lead beyond where you are today. That, I'm just wondering if that's something that, maybe that's the next step in the next 5 years or something. That's,
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, kind of, it does it already, kind of, right? So you have these AI models out there. You can use to give input about your business. It does it actually, and you be very specific, and they give you feedback on what is your best go-to-market strategy, what is your best your ICP. So those things already exist.
But that's you're telling it to do something. In this case, it's getting experiences from different people. It's seeing things that no one knew before. So these are all little pieces that are coming in that are new to the system. And not just someone saying, hey, here's what I have, or here's my customer avatar, or whatever, can you create this? This is all these little pieces of information from projects or different things people are doing. So there are things that people didn't know before. They've done something, now they've learned from it, or just the interaction they're having for it. So it's all new information going into it.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I think it connects to the point that Dave said about some internal knowledge coming from people to systems, and then you're saying consolidation of that systems.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Go ahead.
So I'm Robert Schwartzhagen with Kindbridge and Breakthrough 6. One of the big limiting factors for kind of creating these new models is heavily regulated industries, financial, education, healthcare. How willing are we seeing the rest of the organization to look at changing our governance, how we measure our processes. You talked about invoice speed. Well, maybe the whole way we do this changes, but this impacts other departments. Are you finding the rest of the organization willing to change their approach to it, either internally or government regulations externally?
It is slow to adopt inside our organization. Different departments are not exposed to it, or they don't really look at it in the right context. So it is slow. I do see that in my org, and especially with my customers. They're very risk adverse. So when you talk about AI and anything in the banking industry, they're like, no, I don't want it. They got to explain why the consumer got what they got. So as people get more confident in understanding that the answers are right and they're doing a better job, I will see that adoption. But in mine, it is slow.
Anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, I would just say data and process are inextricably linked, right? So as you get the more data and you get smarter about it or more intelligent about it, the processes have to change. What we see with our customers a lot is they've got more information, but they're not changing their processes, so they're not taking advantage, right, of the new productivity that they could gain. So,
Go ahead.
So if we look out 3 to 5 years, given all these efficiency and productivity gains that organizations are going to receive, right? If I took a step back as an investor, right, I'm looking at the return on invested capital, and given all these people that are going to be replaced to a certain extent, where do you see skills need to be 3-5 years from now for people to actually maintain their jobs?
Skills question. What are the skills of the future, kind of?
So I saw a speech by Elon Musk a few months ago, and very similar question, and it kind of set me back, his answer, and the more you think about it, it's right. He said, you need computer scientists. Computer scientists plus physics, and those are the skill sets he sees as the future. People who are putting controls and wrapping around these toolings. I don't know if I necessarily agree 100% with that, but data science roles are going to evolve. I think you're still going to need data scientists. You're going to still need people who can understand the fundamentals. And I think the physics question is the compute. Right? You're building GPUs to train large, massive models. Those things are going to continue to evolve, and as computing evolves, you're going to see the need for that level of understanding of the machine and the model and the resources it takes to train a new model. These models are I think we're just getting started, right? These things are going to evolve. And to a point, I don't know if we all could comprehend what it's going to look like 5 years from now, right? But that's my take, is the skill set that I think people are you want to see evolve.
Yeah, maybe Sri wants to add something. Go ahead, Sri.
You probably have good input on that.
So there was a study by Harvard done about a year ago where they went to a non-tech business and they gave an AI co-pilot to call center workers. And essentially what they found was that the bottom 25% of these employees that had these co-pilots, their efficiency, or not efficiency is the wrong word, but rather whatever KPI, whatever performance, let's say, their performance improved by a huge margin. The average ones by somewhat, like some improvement was there. And then for in the topmost one, there was like not much improvement or zero improvement. What that means is as AI improves, we are going to go from a co-pilot mode to an AI worker mode, where these bottom layer of like low performant employees, they will have to upskill to have to retain their jobs. But the top layer of employees are like, they won't be replaced in a way. So only the best of the best within the organization at their individual roles will continue to outperform everyone else using AI as well, and the bottom 50%, bottom 25% will be reconfigured into some other role. That's what these predictions are saying.
So as a follow-up to that, right, is if we just look forward, the people who don't lack those skills, what percentage of an organization turns out to become redundant where they're going to be replaced by these robots?
I think we have a number here. Do you guys want to give a number? But I can
I'm still wrapping my head around it. I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty impactful.
Yeah.
But you will see, just like any technology that shifts an industry, I think you're going to see, new industries opening up that weren't even thinking about before.
Yeah, I just read one article that says by 2030, 70 million jobs will be gone, but there will be 130 million million jobs will be created.
I mean, we experienced that at all time when an industrial revolution came along. We had exactly the same discussion.
Mm-hmm.
How, oh my God, we're going to be replaced. Everything collapses. We will run out of work. And then what happened? They trained them on the machines, and they became more specialized. Work became easier, and it benefited everybody at the end. So I think that's not going to be different here.
I'll take that question and give a different flavor because I'm curious about it. Given all the changes that you are aware of it, how do you hire now when you go for a hiring? Because all of you guys hire. So what do you look for today, knowing that there is code gen tools, there are agents, and there are a whole bunch of things? Then what do you look? You still do kind of coding competitions for them, lead code and all that? Or do you look for something else now? Just wanted to get everyone's opinion on that. Maybe Sri, you can start.
Yeah. I have a very strong opinion on that. I mostly hire software engineers because we are a software company. I mandate the use of generative AI tools during the interview process. We still, ultimately a software engineer is going to write code. Mm-hmm. And like everyone within my company uses Microsoft Copilot and all these other AI tools to write. I don't want to hire a person who doesn't know how to do that and is not being a 10x engineer by not using the tool. So if you don't, we only want the best of the best who know how to use all these technologies to get the
productivity.
To get the product out of the door as soon as possible.
Got it. I'm hearing this for the first time. Perhaps the first instinct is to go reverse. Let's remove all these tools and see what he can do without them, because that's the real thing. But I'm really intrigued by that. Maybe David.
Yeah, so I look at, when I'm interviewing people, I look at, first of all, aptitude, right? Do you have this experience or not? And if you don't, do you have the aptitude to learn it? But I really focus more on the creativity of the person. Like, are they innovative? Are they thinking outside the box? Are they not afraid to try something new? Because the market is real thin on talent in this area, right? I don't think you're going to find a large number of experts to come in and do things. And you do, you're great. It's great, right? You get somebody who's been there, done that, and they can accelerate your journey into AI. But I think when I look at talent, I'm looking at, do you have the aptitude and the creativity to be open to leveraging these capabilities? Because they're gonna grow with you, and we're still early in our journey in my mind. So finding somebody that's willing to step in and take that on is what I look for.
Dave, what do you look nowadays?
Yeah, we're a data company, so analytic skills are big. But what we have found is programmers, right? So computer science grads are our best hires, even if they're not programming for us, right? So having that logic and ability to look at data. So programmers typically understand data. And so those tend to be really good hires for us and can work at various parts of the organization.
Go Geeks.
You, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to ask a very honest question. I'm a sales guy, I'm not a geek or a nerd, but this is extremely fascinating to me, so maybe I'm a closeted geek or not. I was having a conversation with ChatGPT the other night, and I started getting honest with it. I'm just amazed by the power of it and its ability to conversate like a real human. So I was asking it, how far is this going to go? And we've talked about revolutions and things like that, but it seems like this is able to, before we've had machines and things like that, this is able though to, it's like brain power. So you're creating something that is smarter than 99% of human beings. So I guess my question is like, what would you say, and not to get super cryptic, but what would you say to somebody who, frankly, is a little bit frightened by the power of this? And do you think it has the ability to change the world more so even than the invention of the internet? Because to me, I think it does.
100%. Cook dinner with it every night. I'm out of this. I forgot to get that. What could I do? Use red onion. Blah blah blah. Got that. Great. How does it? I mean, I do everything with it.
Yeah. What can't it do, right?
That's right.
No, I think it's important to wrap your head around what it can do for you, right? I mentioned earlier, rethinking your problem versus trying to change existing problems. But I look at it as a person, right? Especially generative AI. It's another data scientist on my team that can help accelerate and do things. Doesn't always give you the right answer, so that's something you gotta know what you're talking about. But yeah, it is scary, for sure.
Yeah, let's take 2 more questions. Go ahead.
So I'm not an attorney and I cannot play one on TV. My question's about litigation. So there are millions of patents out there. And with generative AI coming up with new novel concepts all the time, what's your outlook on the litigation future? Crossing over some boundary and future litigation coming in and saying, you violated our patent.
Anybody wants to take that?
Yeah, I'm dealing with that right now with my lawyers, right? Who owns the IP, and are you leveraging these tools, or you're going to accidentally leverage somebody else's IP? And that's really a barrier to entry, honestly. Getting through the legal hurdles, so putting controls around how you use it is what, and language and contracts have to change to protect yourself from some of that, like indemnification. So who's going to pay the bill if you get sued for something you didn't know you were doing in the first place? So those are extremely valid hurdles that you've got to get through to adopt AI in your organization on a large scale. So I think my lawyers are just still they're familiar with it. You know, we have a lot of lawyers in our company. So as you can imagine, but they are taking a conservative approach, which I think is the right way in where we're at right now. But every business is different. But yeah, I'm a little afraid of that part of it because there is so much unknown.
All right, let's take the last question, gentlemen.
I'm still Bodichan, and I have a product called Coworker. I'm working with Karen and the team, Alfreda. We've been leveraging Agentic AI, and we do post-sale help on the post-sale, basically, to reduce the churn and customer churn and kind of upsell, right? I think what we're seeing trend is, of course, I mean, we have a lot of automations and a lot of chatbots, right? Basically, Agentic AI kind of working in chat, and all this paradigm of software interface is reducing, and SaaS also kind of changing as well, right? So, do you guys have any kind of your kind of future thinking on SaaS product itself, which has very interaction intensive? How this is gonna evolve over the time?
I have one. Go ahead. I have one thought around it. You know, what used to be an application, and you fill in boxes or whatever. Now you're just asking it in English, right? And saying, I need a policy that supports X, Y, and Z, and here's my reasoning behind it. And here you just give it the information, and it develops it for you, right? So I think that the interaction is just a text box now versus a prompt versus a full, and then then you can say and visualize it for me, and it's going to drop charts out, right, versus a dashboard that you had before. So it's exciting to me in that sense. It just changes the way you have to interact with it and think through it. But the application now is a chat box. Yeah. And I'm literally thinking through my business, so there's probably a ton of different ways to approach it from other industries.
Well, just think as a business how many portals you have. Right, so every vendor you deal with has a portal, right? Either to pay your bill or to interact with them, and that's going to go away. Like all those portals are going to go away. We actually have an acronym for it. I can't use it here because we're on film, but those are going to go away, I think, over time.
I think like touching on that, actually, we do that automation in the accounts payable part, where some of the customers we work with, they have like 140 different portals where they have to go and check the status of payments and so on. You don't have to do that anymore because the AI agent is just gonna summarize get all that information, summarize it for you, and you can ask it through a chat interface or whatever. But all these efficiency gains are like massive if you do it at scale.
I think one of the key thing, the work, either programming or designing the user interface, probably that job gonna be kind of slowing down also is what kind of I'm thinking.
Yeah. Maybe we'll,
I think we're going to close out questions.
Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, let's take the last question.
Okay. I'm Balu, I'm from the Toyota Cybersecurity. So I have a question for Srijan. I was hearing a lot about your data and your customers and all. So on the other side, like what are the steps you're taking to ensure your customer that your data is secured and there is no vulnerabilities can enter? Like what, as a CEO of the company, how do you give that trust to your customer?
SOC 2 compliance. I think like that's still the standard. Even in the AI age, we are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. And the AI systems that we use, some are open source models, so we house them in-house, so that data doesn't go out. The other ones that we use, for example, Azure OpenAI, we use that extensively. And Azure OpenAI has a promise to everyone using their system that they're not going to use the data to train their models and improve their system. So those are the standard ways in which not just us, but everyone in the entire industry is ensuring that the data is safe and secure. I don't think beyond this additional change that we are now sending the data out to a LLM provider to get some response back. That's the only new thing that has happened. Everything else remains the same because software is still the same. And in that part, Microsoft Azure has made it very easy for us to convince our customers that the data is fine.
Yeah, I mean, corollary to that, if you're working with someone and you have an NDA, a lot of NDAs will say that my data is my data, so I give it to you, you can use it, but when we end this, you have to give it back to me or destroy everything, and anything you created through my data is mine. So now what happens with AI is that data goes into the system, you're doing stuff, and I say, now I want the data back, I want you to destroy anything that you created with my data.
Yeah. We don't train on our customers' data.
You know what?
We don't train on our customers' data, so we are safe on that.
Okay.
There's a way.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karen.
Well, what a great discussion. I think we could go on for another hour, but we won't. Let's give a hand to our moderator and our speakers. Thank you all for coming out tonight. You can see by the numbers how much interest there is in this subject matter. So this is the first, but it won't be the last of our programs on this topic for sure.